Hello, everybody, and welcome to my next issue of Personal Brand Mechanics interview series. My name is Peter Sterlacci. I'm the founder of Believe, Become, Be Your Brand. And I started this interview series because I've met some pretty amazing people in my work who I've basically have dubbed mechanics of personal branding. I mean, these folks really don't see themselves as mechanics of personal branding, but I've dubbed them that because I feel they have really a toolbox of kind of tools, tips, and strategies to help any one of us to build, maintain, and even repair our personal brands. Now, over the last year, I've had the pleasure of interviewing about 13 people. And if you go to my blog at petersterlacci.com, you'll see the update or the summary of the past 13 people I've interviewed. But today, I'm really excited to welcome AJ Leon as my next guest on the show. So AJ, thanks so much for taking the time out of your travels and your busy schedule to be with us today.
You're welcome. And we've been trying to set this up for a while, so I'm very happy to be on with you.
Yeah, definitely. Now, AJ's been you've appeared on so many interviews and places. I mean, I've seen you on Jonathan Field's Good Life Project along with Melissa, and also listened to your interview with Srini Rao on Blogcast FM. So it's really an honor for you to take a little bit of your time to be on my very small interview series, but I really appreciate that. So
Oh, that's awesome.
let's start with first, if people were to look for you online, they're going to see you in a couple of places. I mean, one of them is the Misfit site, and the other one is, your pursuitoferything.com. So if you could kind of tell us a
Yep.
little bit about, what are these two sites, how do they work together, etc.
Yeah. My primary site is pursuitoferything.com. That site is basically two things. First, it's a site where I publish all my writing and writing about living with intention, doing work that matters, and changing the world. And also chronicles a journey that I'm currently on, which is to travel around the entire planet in 1,080 days without using a plane or a boat. So it's basically overland travel, traveling very slowly. And so that's that. And then Misfit, and a lot of people, the cohesion between the two, it makes no sense to folks. But basically, Misfit is a business that I run. So it's a company that I've run for 4 years. And have run with Melissa for 4 years, and we have now 6 employees, and we've been going, and we do quite a few different things. So
Cool.
that's the difference between the two.
Got it. Now, I was really first pulled into kind of your space in the world because somebody had raised my attention to your manifesto, The Life and Times of Remarkable Misfit. And I got to tell you, honestly, I'm not a very avid reader. I mean, I really read when I need
I think I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, I just read when I need information. So, and it's kind of sad for me to admit that. I really should probably be reading more. But when when someone sent this to me and I started reading it, honestly, I have to say, AJ, that it just got me hooked. And I got to one point right in the beginning where it says, like, I think, if you're still reading this essay, then you either have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, or you've bookmarked this. And I've got to say, you literally speaking, and I'm not saying this just to say this. I mean, your manifesto is the one thing that I keep on my desktop because I go back to it time and time again. And so I really wanted to ask you, for people out there
Wow,
who are not familiar
thank
with
you.
it. Oh, you're welcome. Really, what was your motivation for putting this together? I mean, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, because that means the whole wide world to me.
You're
I mean,
welcome.
that was something that I self-published, and whenever you do something like that, I think it takes an enormous, like, you're just, all of us, right? We're
Right.
all in this world, and we're all publishing the things that we believe, and it's
Sure.
terrifying to do that because there is no, there's no gatekeeper. There's nobody tell
Right.
you that what you have to say is fucked up.
Right.
So
Right.
it's a terrifying thing. I put that together. I mean, I knew for about a year that I was launching a site, the pursuitoferything.com. So I really planned for it.
Right.
And I thought to myself, I knew I mean, I've been working on Misfit, my company, for a long time, and the ideologies behind that I have been a part of my life for
Right.
about 4 years, but I haven't talked about any of those, or been writing, or really exposed my, like, thoughts and philosophies behind
Mm.
why I do what I do
Mm.
over the last few years, until very recently. So when I launched the site on August 16th of this year, and it was, obviously it's a site
Mm,
chronicling this journey as well as everything else. I wanted something. I mean, this is your website is about personal brand, so I
right.
mean, I'll just kind of
Sure.
leave it with that angle. I wanted something that people could stick with. I
Mm,
wanted something that would be a thesis on my life's work, on what
right.
I believe.
Sure.
Um, and I thought the reason that would be valuable is just like, I mean, articles are fantastic, but, things, in our world, everything's so flippant, right? You could write your
Right.
magnum opus, right, and post it tomorrow, and next week, no one remembers what the fuck you wrote because so much has happened in the torrential stream of information, and it
Yeah.
could, so to pull that, to pull thoughts together into something that's a little bit more substantial, I think is a good thing for people to do. So
Right.
that's what I did. And I pulled essays that I had written. Some I had written, they were
Right.
already written. And then some I wrote fresh for the project. And I pulled together things that I thought would centralize and depict like the things that I believe, which are mainly
Right.
live your life with intention, do work that actually matters to
Sure.
you, and change the world in some
Mm,
way. Use
yeah,
your one and
definitely.
only life to change the world.
Definitely.
So I pulled it together and I published. The funny thing is, on that day, I was ready to go live with the site. I designed it myself. I was really excited about everything. The only thing that terrified me that I really didn't want to do is I
Mm,
didn't want to publish the manifesto. And I
mm,
sat on it for 2 hours
really?
in the morning. Yeah, I was, I was like, nobody's going to get it. No, this and they might not like point at it and deride it, but
Right.
no one's gonna I'm not gonna get any sort of positive feedback from this, and I'm gonna feel like a fucking asshole, and that's
Mm,
exactly what I thought. So for 2 hours I sat on it. I almost didn't publish it. I ended up publishing it, and now it's been downloaded almost 100,000 times,
that's
and it's
amazing.
turning it into a physical book, and everything else. So it's been nuts, but it just goes to
Cool.
show you never know.
Yeah, no, really. I mean, I think as you said, I'm glad you did publish it and you didn't sit on it for 6 months and not do anything with it. I mean, as I said, for people out there who have not downloaded it, definitely go and download it. It's still downloadable on your site, I assume, correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
cool.
And it'll
Definitely,
always be
definitely.
free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome, awesome. Well, is there anything, since you've published it, is there anything that you feel is missing from the manifesto that you wish now you would have included since you published it?
Um, yeah. I mean, there's always things, right?
Right,
Once you publish something, anytime you do anything, you're always like, damn it.
right.
2 months later, wishing that you could have squeezed in this new piece of knowledge, but hindsight's 2020. One thing that I certainly probably would have added there, just as an essay that I mean, I haven't written yet, but it's something that I'm working on,
Mm,
is just that, like, I feel like there's this growing fallacy of solopreneurship. I
right,
feel like a lot of people have this sense in our world,
right.
have this sense that they have to be a solopreneur and they have to do this one
Mm,
one thing, and they have to be alone, and they have to, and I feel like that is, for some people, it's a very good thing, and it
right.
and that sort of paradigm pushes people to do that thing that that one thing that they should be doing.
Sure.
But not everybody's that. Not
Right,
everybody,
right,
like, I'm not a solopreneur, right?
right.
I mean, I work with Melissa. I have 6 people that work with me. I'm like, I work in a team. I couldn't imagine the loneliness of solopreneurship. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a serious endeavor. I mean, you're alone. You're doing everything yourself, from the technical side to account, whatever it is that you do.
right,
Plus the work itself.
right.
But I think that that is something that people. I meet a lot of. We just hosted a Misfit dinner
Hmm.
in Vancouver as we were driving through on this trip, and as we drove through, and I was having great conversations with a lot of people. But I get this sense from people that
Mm.
they feel like they have to,
Uh,
be go out on their own and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Possibly finding somewhere great,
Sure.
and impact that way.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of like recently did read a book called The Startup of You. It was co-authored by the CEO of LinkedIn, Reid Hoffman, and in that, he kind of sends the message that we are all entrepreneurs, but not necessarily that we're all out there trying to start our own businesses. We're gonna quit the 9 to 5
Yeah.
job and run out there and do something. But I like what he says, that it's kind of like we're entrepreneurs of just of ourselves, you know,
Yeah.
and whatever that is, whether it is, you know, we could be very happy and like what we're doing in the 9 to 5 grind, or we could be the person who wants to kind of go out on their own, et cetera.
Yeah.
But you know, it's an interesting journey. I mean, because I actually I would put myself in the category of the solopreneurship right now. I mean, my business is still relatively young, just a little over a year. And it really is. It's one of those things where you're like, man, I mean, shoot, should I have left the salary? Should I have left
Yeah.
the job to do what I'm doing? But I mean, I think it goes back to what you're saying. You know, this whole idea of living with intention, you know, doing work
Yeah.
that matters and changing the world. And so I think there are people out there who really aspire to that. So I'm wondering if
I
you can give
agree.
some advice or tips for the person who really does want to kind of, you know, do what you're suggesting. What would you suggest for them to do to get started?
I mean, I think a lot of times, I don't know. I mean, there's tons of things, right? I think the most difficult thing for me is you have to know what you don't want
Mm,
before you know what you do. You know what
right.
I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and that is a big key that I think people miss, because a lot of time people spend time trying to figure out what's that one thing, what's my one idea, my one big thing that I'm going to dedicate my life to. But I think more importantly is figuring out what are the things that you don't want.
Mm,
You know,
great.
do
Yeah.
you not? I mean, do you value freedom? You don't want to be stuck in an office. You know,
Right.
that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't get a job at another cool place that has remote working, or, you know,
Sure.
what. So like identifying all those things in your life that you don't like right now,
Mm,
and then drawing up a list of the things that you actually want from your life. I think
right.
the most important thing though is, you know, you can't. I lived my life for a very long time when I was in finance, and it wasn't just that job, it was my entire life. Everything in my life was scripted,
Right.
social scripts and
Sure.
social cues. You know, I did exactly what you're supposed to do. I went to college and got the best mark, and then jumped to the
Mm,
biggest firm, and then vertical
mm,
leap, and then I had
mm.
the same clothes as everybody else, and I was a conformist in many
Right.
ways.
Right.
And with your conformist in one way in your life, you're usually that permeates every area of your
Mm.
life. and
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think that, you know, I think that, you know, that to me is one very, very important thing,
Sure.
trying to identify the things that you don't want your life
That's
to
awesome.
represent.
That's awesome.
um, yeah.
Yeah. So it's, I guess you weren't able to wear the cool red sneakers when you're working in the financial sector, huh?
No, those were illegal. Actually, there's a sign on the wall: "Do not wear red sneakers." And now I wear them all the time.
Well,
No, I'm kidding.
when you mentioned the whole conformity thing, I remember one of my jobs in the summertime years back, because my mom was a manager at IBM, and so she got me a job in the IBM mailroom, and so even in the mailroom, you know, we had to wear a blue suit and a white shirt. You know,
Yeah,
it had to be a white shirt. I mean, you couldn't put
it's
any,
like,
you know, that was it. I mean, and
yeah.
talk about, you know, conformity, et cetera, et cetera. But you know, you mentioned earlier that you're on this massive, you know, 1,080-day trip around the world, and now you're in kind of day 130 something or what have you. You
30.
know, in you know, so far, you know, in this massive trip, you know, where would you say you feel that you guys have had the greatest impact, and why? I'm sure you've had a massive impact in so many places, but if you had to put your finger on, you know, this is the place where I felt, man, we did make a significant change. What would that be? Where would that be, and why?
I mean, it's that is a difficult question to
Mm,
answer, because this trip is for itself, you know, and it's
yeah,
not, like we're not. It's not like we're doing any. I'm not doing any particular thing throughout this trip. This trip is because, you know, I'm an adventurer and I wanted to see the entire world in a
right,
5 year span, and try. So it's hard to answer that, because it's not like I have
yeah,
projects in every city, or I don't have an agenda. In other
sure,
words, however, I can't say that there's so many places that I visited that have just touched me, you know,
mm,
and have had a huge impact, um, on my life, even thus far.
right,
And you know, then there's a lot of, I mean, we've only been on the road for 130 days, but the amount of people that you meet, you know,
sure,
traveling probably 6,000 miles or whatever it's been in 130 days, and the amount of experiences that you have.
right,
You know, 2 weeks ago, I was in, you know, driving in Colorado. We're driving this veggie powered Misfit
yeah,
bus. You know, we
yeah,
got this
yeah,
municipal bus, and we gutted it, and we like renovated all the inside. and I'm driving it through the snow, and I'm in New York. This is the first car I've ever owned, so
Right.
like I'm just like this, just oh my God, and there's things coming on, and then we lost our transmission out of
Oh my
nowhere.
God.
Yeah, and that's a big deal. That is not a small deal in the middle of the snow on a mountain, and then you just end up meeting people, and people that are willing.
Right.
We had a friend in Boulder who then knew a mechanic who could fit,
Right.
and then that whole and throughout that experience, you end up meeting different people and having these
Sure.
kind of moments
Right.
that you would have never had,
Yeah, exactly.
and that's the one thing that I love about adventure, and I always
Mm.
say about adventure, true adventure, not a holiday, but a true
Right.
adventure. You
Absolutely.
don't know how the story's going to end, man, and
Absolutely.
that can completely change the trajectory of your life in ways that are just unimaginable at the onset of it.
Sure, totally, totally. Yeah, well, I mean, you've got so many more days ahead of you, but it's just amazing, and more power to you when you do this. And hopefully, when your travels get you to Japan and to Asia, we'll be able to have a chance to actually meet in person.
Way better, man.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, as I said, as I started this interview, I consider you, I've dubbed you now a mechanic of personal branding, and really this comes from, just a fanatic, crazy cyclist. And for people who do follow me, they know me that I love bicycles, and I ride, I race, I train, etc. And so I just kind of had this idea of mechanics. I learned how to repair and build my bicycles through mechanics, and so meeting people like yourself who I consider to be mechanics as well. So I want you to imagine, to use a cycling analogy, a cycling image here. I want you to imagine that someone's personal brand has a flat tire. They've just hit that that hot hole in the road. And what advice would you give them to really pump up that tire so that their personal brand is ready to ride again?
Hmm. Good question, man. These are tough. No meatballs in this interview.
No.
Uh, yeah, I think something that really helped me. I mean, you can only speak from your own experience. Something that really helped me figure, and I think that by personal brand, I think a lot of people like misuse that term.
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
you. I've
sure.
looked through your stuff, and I know that you use it in the appropriate term. A lot of people, it's like a veneer of
Right,
self, and I
exactly.
think that if you're thinking about how I can do something to be marketable, I think that's
Right,
very difficult. That's easy at a corporate level when
sure.
it's product, but it's very difficult at a personal level, like as a solopreneur or a
Right,
small shop, like even this, a very small shop, it's me. So
right,
I
exactly.
think the most important thing is you have to know what you're about. I mean,
Right.
we have one life,
Mm,
one and only. This is our one and only life, and spending that time in self-discovery
mm,
of what you're about, not how you're going to make money or
mm,
generate a profit or what product you're going to sell or how you're going to make it marketable, but why do you do the things
mm.
that you do?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And that I think is something that is absolutely at the core of,
right.
of personal brand. And an
Yeah.
exercise that helped me do that is writing. You know,
Mm,
that is what I've told people. I mean, I wrote most of the essays that I wrote in that manifesto, I wrote in the year previous to it when I
got
just
it.
started writing. I started a
Sure.
newsletter, a private newsletter called The Pursuit of Everything, a year before I launched that website. Okay.
Right.
I had zero subscribe. I had one subscriber on my first day was my mother,
Yeah,
and
yes, of
and
course.
then Melissa joined, and then I had like five more, and then my mom unsubscribed. I remember seeing that in the
Ah,
Mailchimp thing, and I'm like, oh, that's easy.
that's not
This is
cool,
not
man.
this is not a good
That is
day.
not cool.
Maybe I should just stop doing this. And then, but over time, I just had this really private ground where I
Yeah,
could express my thoughts to a
right.
very small group of people that were very, that
Sure.
they decided to come there. It wasn't a site you weren't going to get this tweeted at you. And through that exercise of writing,
Mm,
at least I was writing, once or twice a week. It forced me to express and articulate
right.
my thought process, and I wasn't trying
Absolutely.
to be pragmatic. I was answering the question of why. Like, why do I
Mm,
do this? Why
yeah.
do I travel around the world? Why do I spend 20% of my time on the African continent, working on
Yeah.
humanitarian projects where I don't make a dime? Why,
Yeah.
why do I let my employees travel around the world, and in fact give them money to do it? Like,
Right.
why do I value these
Mm,
things, and when you start writing about it, it forces you, even if it's privately and
sure.
internal, I think it'll
Sure.
it'll help your personal brand, because I think you'll end up
Right.
figuring out why, who you are and why you do what you do.
Man, absolutely. I mean, it's really it's amazing you say that, and it kind of resonates with and I'm sure people have seen or watched Simon Sinek's TED Talk on, and he wrote that book Start with Why. And that to me was one of the things I remember, like a year and a half ago, and I had seen his talk numerous times, but finally it really spoke to me in the sense that people buy why you do what you do, and I was thinking, man, I'm so miserable. I hate what I'm doing, and this is not me, this is not my why, and
Yeah,
that was the kind of one of the kind of things that, among other things, that kind of pushed me to the edge to say, look, I've got to make a significant change in what I'm doing,
yeah.
because yeah, I could continue to go through the motions. I remember my wife always saying to me, you would leave the house every day in a bad, miserable mood, and I'm like, God,
Dude,
this is
that was
not
that's exactly me, man. That was yeah. I was angry. I just get up with put my pants on and
yeah.
just my shirt, and I just get out, angry.
Exactly, that's exactly how I was, and I did that for 3+ years in a row, and it was just, I had to make the change, and so yeah, I love exactly what you're saying. I mean, really, and I think it's hard though. I mean, I really think that people really have to think about what that is, and I like your idea in terms of writing, if especially if you can sit down and write about it, but even just reflecting, whether you go out for a bicycle ride or you meditate or whatever it is you do, you can kind of find ground yourself to figure out
Yeah,
what that is, right?
yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
tell us, what's I know besides your travels, you got a lot more travels to go, but what's on the immediate radar screen for you guys, and anything coming up that's new that you can tell us about?
Let's see. I'm publishing. I mean, this is kind of cool for me, at least. I'm publishing "The Life and Times of a Remarkable Misfit." Now that it's been downloaded almost 100,000 times, we're going to be publishing in January an actual physical book
Great,
of
great.
that. I've had like a bunch of requests for it and all that, and that's for me, dude. Like that. There's no publisher involved. I mean, for me to have written that myself, designed it, with my
Right,
illustrator and designed it myself, and then freak out, almost not publish it, and 6 months later,
right.
to be in this position, it feels pretty good to
That's
have your
awesome.
ideas resonate with the world, and that's great. We're gonna keep on traveling. I mean, we got the rest of this year is dedicated to North America. We
Hmm.
wanted to go to all 50 states and all 8 Canadian provinces. We're going to do that, and some
Okay,
Caribbean islands. And then in
great.
August, we'll be going down through. We're gonna take the Pan American Highway all the
Right.
way from Alaska
Oh,
down
wow.
to Tierra del Fuego at the bottom of the
Jeez.
world, and then
Wow.
come back up the other. It's going to be. I mean, I'm looking forward to it.
That's
You know,
amazing. Very
so
cool,
we
very cool.
got that and a couple other publishing. We have Misfit Quarterly, which is a creative
Yep.
arts journal, a second edition of that coming out in January, and some other fun stuff.
Cool.
Misfits are always coming up with some crazy shit.
Well, that's what you have to be a misfit, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
now,
Keep on.
if people want to get in touch with you, I mean, what's the best way? I mean, is it Twitter or your website or?
Cool. Yeah. Best way would be just go to pursuitofeverything.com, and we have a great little community of misfits there. You can also tweet me at AJ Leon, and yeah, and that's it.
Cool, awesome. Well, I'll make sure that we put that contact information in the post here. And for those of you who, if this is your first time actually seeing one of my personal brand mechanic interviews, definitely encourage you to check out the others. If you're sitting here on YouTube watching it, just look to the side. You'll see the other interviews there, or just go to petersterlacci.com and click on my blog. And as I said, I recently wrote a post highlighting the 13 folks that I've just interviewed over the past year. And AJ, we're going to be, I'm excited that, kind of I guess we'll officially say you're the first post of 2013.
I'm the inaugural 2013 post.
2013 guy. So
Yes.
yes, this is going to be the first one of the year. So I want to wish
Validation.
you a happy new year and really an awesome 2013. Stay in touch, and I'm really excited that you're getting the book, the manifesto, into an actual book now.
Thank
And
you.
as I said, I mean, it really is one of the few things that I do keep on hand to read every now and then, and
It means
it's
the
been a
world to me.
huge help for me. Especially, I mean, literally, dude. I mean, the times that I'm just sitting here thinking, man, why the hell am I doing this shit? And then I can look on the desktop. There it is. I click on it. I read an essay. I'm like, that's why I'm doing it.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. So you
exactly.
really, I mean, your
Dude.
message is resonating with me and so many other people. So thanks again. Thanks so much for taking the time. Safe travels. Happy, healthy 2013, and let's stay connected.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on. I really, truly appreciate it, Peter.
Thank you so much. Take care.